Hi, welcome back to my daily review of what's going on with our government and COVID-19 in the country. My name's Adrian Smith. If you'd like to know a little bit more about other stuff that I do it on Podbean. And yeah, if you fancy podcasts rather than looking at me. Okay, what I'm going to do today is as it's Friday, I'm going to have a roundup of the week of basically what's gone on, how I basically looking at that and not taking it apart, but seeing if we can find within the disinformation and the deceit and the spin what actually has been the outcome. So okay, let's have a look at Boris and his government over the last week. So I guess it's become pretty obvious. We have the lowest testing rate in the developed world. The thing is, allegedly we can't get tests that are reliable. But currently we're exporting tests to all the other countries that seem to be very reliable. So why is that? I just want to leave that with you. So, that's Mr. Matt Hancock and his testing. But don't worry, he said he's going to be ramping it up. Now, the thing is, what I've come to realise is, when a government says, or our ministers, Boris Johnson, Gove, or Hancock says, it ramping up, what it means is that they are going to give you another load of bullshit. And the papers are going to then spread that bullshit in a really positive manner, so you think they are actually doing something. And the reason they use the word ramping up is it sounds like it's got like a bit of a punch about it, hasn't it? So they like that word. And so 100,000 tests in May a day. That's 4 weeks later if they hit that target. Give you some idea. That will then make it's been over 3 months since this has arrived in this country, a death of this disease that they knew 3 months prior to that. We produce our own testing kits in this country and we send them abroad. So, yeah. And on top of that, only 2 weeks ago, Boris Johnson said he was ramping up testing to 250,000 a day. So I've come to the conclusion, this isn't disinformation, deceit, it's just fucking lies, basically. Do you know what I mean? And nothing more. And that's fine in the sense of, if you want to believe that, So, yeah. What else has happened this week? Well, the good news is we will all be getting a letter off Mr. Johnson because he's currently indisposed. He's currently got a very mild case of the coronavirus, but it's so mild that he cannot use video links to people or be questioned or take press conferences and stuff like that. So it's a very unique form of coronavirus. Personally, I think he's just hiding. He has got a bit of a track record of that. Remember, he ran into the fridge in the election. So maybe as if we went to Downing Street and looked in the fridge, we might find Boris and they can do a retest. What else have we learnt? We've learnt that actually the World Health Organization says the incubation period is 7 to 14 days. But our health secretary is back out of quarantine after 6. So why he's telling us to all stay indoors, it doesn't seem to apply to him. No one seems to want to pick up on that and do it and say anything about it, which is, I find, a little bit strange, to say the least. The other part of this is obviously the other person that's being tested around the cabinet is Dominic Cummings. What that, I guess, has proved to some of us that Dominic Cummings has some human DNA in him, if that test is actually accurate and correct. Personally, a lot of people probably question that, but there you go. The other thing is that what they've done as well is that they've decided, the British government, to bring in a new advisor. What an advisor is basically someone who means that they are so badly in the shit around something, they need someone to go and have another look at it and see if they can find another way of manipulating this so they don't have to take responsibility. That come out the other day, very interestingly, when they said that they are going to write off the £12 billion worth of debt the NHS owes. Once again, I've got no idea who the NHS owes it to because we own it. So technically, the NHS owes me some part of £12 billion, but I've got to pay national insurance to keep it going. It couldn't be the fact that actually what has actually happened here is that in the last 10 years of their cuts to the NHS, which actually amount to over £100 billion, that it maybe it's a struggle to meet its budget of 12 billion. That could be it. So maybe the solution is if Boris actually stuck to his promise of the £350 million on the bus, that would pay it off really quickly anyhow, so we don't have to worry about it. So I guess what we really need to look at this maybe under a different view is that actually if Boris just kept one of his promises, that would be great, you know, and if he did that and the £350 million a week that is actually coming from Europe can pay off the 12 billion and I can't. I would also like to raise the point of the fact that they have privatised £9 billion worth of NHS services and are continuing to do so. So maybe it isn't £12 billion it owes us, maybe Richard Branson needs a bailout. Possibly. I don't know. We can think about that. The other thing that we've worked out this week is actually Theresa May has been more than correct. There isn't a magic monetary tree. There's actually a fucking forest. Because whatever happens, they just go, oh, it's not a problem. You can have more money for that. I don't get this because after a decade of allegedly low growth and stagnation due to being in the European Union and the bankers' crisis, that we have now suddenly found a land of milk and honey in the printing machine. No one seems to be asking about that, neither. So, what else have we got? That actually, I've mentioned about the testing. Testing is available, but only to people who are deemed important, like Prime Ministers, Health Secretaries and the Royal Family. And then other people who are probably critically ill and they just need to know. So there seems to be that testing is based on wealth, not on health. So I'm glad we're all in it together, because he does like to say that sometimes, you know, that we've got to fight this together. So the other thing that actually maybe people are not aware of, that the death rate in this country from COVID-19 is not accurately being reported. And the simple reason not accurately being reported, they only report people who die of COVID-19 in hospital. Now, we already know that COVID-19's biggest mortality rate is going to be with the elderly. And most of the elderly are in care or in their own home. And actually, because they won't ever be tested, it will be deemed as respiratory failure or pneumonia or something else. So the reality is we won't have an accurate figure. But I guess if you're a government that doesn't do testing, that can't provide PPE for your frontline workers, then you certainly don't want the death rate to go through the roof. But it seems to be going through anyhow, even with them trying to stop that. The other thing I think that has become really apparent around that day is, just so you're aware, when they say that they are delivering 70 million pieces of equipment, they count every glove as a piece of equipment, not a box. So if you think about that, there are 450,000 frontline NHS workers, right? That if they use 2 bits of gloves a day, yeah, that is 1 million a day. So do you know what I mean? It very quickly adds up to 70 million, doesn't go very far. But it did sound good, I've got to say, 70 million. The only thing was, actually, it's the wrong bit of kit. And that has become apparent, do you know what I mean? The other thing I think that has transpired this week, that actually we need to bail out billionaires and millionaires with the likes of Branson and all of the other companies that are currently now struggling. They're not struggling. What they're going to say is, if you don't give us your money, we're not going to spend our own. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch over the next few weeks. As part and what else has come to light, that if you do want a loan from the bank, that the government is backing and you are a business, I feel very sorry for you, because actually you've backed a great big interest rate on it, up to 30%, and you've got to put all your assets up as collateral. So that might explain why only 1,000 businesses out of 130,000 that applied are currently have actually got the help. But see where that goes. So what do I think of the current performance? Well, death rate rising, hospital workers in danger, not enough doctors, not underfunded, a load of bollocks about the NHS owing money to us when we own the NHS. Boris Johnson possibly hiding in his fridge or somewhere in Downing Street, we can't find him. A health secretary that tells us that, yeah, you've got to stay in for 7 to 14 days and goes out after 6. Dominic Cummings, who may well be human after all, we will have to wait and see, that's still ongoing, you know. And you know, finally we've opened a hospital in London, a Nightingale hospital, field hospital, that's going to take hundreds and hundreds of people. However, we've got a bit of a problem. Michael Gove has only got 30 ventilators arriving next week, so let's hope no patients arrive, or if they do, there's only 30, because we can't treat them anyhow. So, fantastic achievement by the people, dreadful achievement once again by our government. Do you know what I mean? So, what can I say? I'm sure Boris will reappear when this is passed over a little bit, because he certainly won't reappear. Why he's going to be questioned. I think the best thing you can do current now is stay indoors. Look after yourself, like you said, protect the NHS, because the way this is going, I don't feel that confident that there's any leadership or care for the common people in this country from the people who are running it. I think there's a load from the people who are actually working in it, and I applaud them, and so does our country. However, on a performance level of abysmal over the week, I'll give this government an abysmal, appalling level. I cannot see what they have done that has actually improved anything, other than actually put more people at risk and not following their own advice. Take care, stay safe, and I will be back after the weekend.